Greetings, great beings of light. My name is Ishtara. How many of you have that thing that you're always a little worried about in the back of your mind? You're always wondering when that other consequence is going to happen, that maybe you're going to come up short in whatever way. Almost like there's something invisible chasing you with some thought or belief that you repetitively have. Does this make sense to any of you? And some of you may need to think about this, but pretty much everyone, if you're an incarnated experience, has this in one way or another.
It says hands are nodding.
Hands are nodding.
Both.
And the reason this is important to come up today, which really reflects the inner conversation that Holly's been having, is this idea of, in Holly's world, the way this shows up relative to channeling is, what if I'm supposed to channel and there's nothing there? What if I feel all alone and no one's actually there? And there are people assembled ready to hear something, and there's nothing to be said. And even though this has never happened, after all the years of channeling, it's still a worry and concern. It's still a sense of insecurity for her. It's something that she hasn't put down yet. And there was just an inner conversation before she actually started allowing me to speak around that very topic, where she thinks that she will feel secure if she has the topic ahead of time. And while that would make her human experience a little more relaxed, the reality is it's not going to extinguish her expectation that maybe sometime she's going to sit in this position she is, or in all the other positions where she's asked to share a message and there's nothing there.
That's never happened.
It's never happened. And yet the worry is still there. Now, and the reason this is coming up is because it's a very common human experience, one way or another. For some people, it's a concern that maybe tomorrow they're going to be fired, or how long is my job going to last, or how long is my income going to stay this way? Or how long is this person going to love me? When are they going to recognize that they really actually don't like me and they're going to kick me out or leave, or whatever it might be? And these are haunting thoughts. These are haunting worries. These are haunting concerns. That's what they're going to be called today, is the haunting thoughts, worries, or concerns. That's the title.
Okay, thanks.
And it's important to bring this into the light, so to speak, because the haunting worries, fears, and concern that don't have any foundational basis in the moment are something that limits your energetic experience around everything else. It keeps you from being fully present in any given moment, whether it's a subconscious drum beating of, what if they don't show up? What if it doesn't happen? What if I don't have what it takes? What if people see me for who I am and they reject me? All of those little haunting thoughts, the foundation of them is some form of insecurity, correct?
Yes.
And insecurity is a form of fear. So how do you combat these? If you can become, number one, aware of what they might be for you. And everyone's going to have their own flavor of them. And by the way, you could very much justify that haunting fear, worry, or concern by evidence in your life. You could say, well, I worked in a very unstable industry for quite a while where pretty much you never knew from month to month if you were going to be working or if somebody was going to like you, and they might arbitrarily dismiss you. I mean, you can justify your worry, fear, and concern, but it still exists as a haunting thought. And when you look at those things and you realize what you're bringing into your energetic space is something that's not real. It's an imagination in the moment, isn't it? Mm. Because if it were real, you'd be losing that lover. You'd be not having enough money. You'd be losing the job. But none of it is in your current day reality. So how do you work with these energies as you become aware of them? Because many of these are below the level of your awareness. But when they become in the field of your awareness, what do you do with them when you recognize that they're chewing up some of the energy you have? They're taking up space. They're taking up too much of the bed or too much of the couch, like the person who sleeps all sprawled out. They're taking up too much space that can be better utilized by you. So here are the steps to work with these haunting thoughts, feelings, and memories that are keeping you energetically less than. They're contracting your energetic field because they're worry, fear, which are constricting, contracting energies. What you know is when you acknowledge that they're there, because you've heard this before, you always want to keep your energy in an outwardly moving, expansive direction, correct? So once you recognize it's there, literally talk to yourself about it. Oh, wow, I really recognize that I have a lot of haunting thoughts around this thing. I'm worried about these things happening. Are they happening now? My goodness, they're not happening right now. Have yourself a little conversation. It doesn't have to be out loud. It can be within your head. It could be in your journal. But become aware, recognize them, and give it a voice. And as you give it a voice, you get to give it some form and structure to actually be able to evaluate if it's real or not, because haunting thoughts and feelings are on the edge. They're not always right, front, and center. So what you're going to do is intentionally bring them front and center by describing them. Wow, I'm really worried that this Friday I'm going to be fired. But I realize now that I worry about that every single Friday. And when I really think about it, I've been worried about that for 2 years. So you're really you're bringing it out into the light through the conversation. Because as you know, very oftentimes when you think about things that are haunting, when you shine the light on them, they disappear, correct? They don't hold up to the light. They're elusive. Just like the monster maybe under your bed as a kid. I could pretty much guarantee you that you never really had the monster under your bed, but it sure felt real when you were worried about it. And it's the same kind of thing. It's haunting, it's there, but if you took the flashlight in the middle of the night underneath your bed, or flipped the lights on and lifted your bedspread and took a look under there, there wasn't what you believed to be there. So give it a voice, give it some form, give it some structure, give it some quote unquote reality, and then begin to ask yourself, is this really true? Because as you've all heard before, when you begin to ask the questions, you begin to be curious. about some other outcome that's possible. Is it really true? I wonder what else I could think. And as you do, you're expanding your energy field to choose a different point of view. So if we go back through the steps again, for those of you who like to take notes, is number 1, become aware. Number 2, talk about what it is and what you're feeling. Number 3, shine the light through the talking about, is this really true? Does this really exist? And your next step could be being curious about why. I wonder why I'm even worried about this. And it'll be interesting for many of you to recognize what you're really worried about, because some of it's going to be obvious. You could say, well, of course I'm worried about it because I really need this job to live. But there's going to be some deeper reasons there that about your sense of security. You might notice that you have other people's stories playing out in your head. So you want to really get into the place of understanding the motivation of why you're feeling that way. Because that's what's really driving the bus, the motivation, what I believe to be true deep inside, because that's where you can then start to create a shift. Well, if it's really not true right now, because I realized for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been expecting to be fired every single Friday, and it's never happened. I have a lot of evidence that it's very likely not to happen. But there's a part of me that's hanging on to this haunting thought because I really need to have a sense of security. So I'm going to create a plan that if it happens, this is what I'm going to do. And then once you have that plan in place, it can satisfy the human side of you that says, I really don't want to be insecure like that. I'd like a sense of security. Now you can be in action to create the sense of security that inner part of you needs, that thought was doing it with the haunting thoughts. And then what you've done is you're not recreating energy all the time that is literally chewing up bandwidth of yours. Not that you have a limited bandwidth, but it's taking up energy, holding that thought and belief that's the undercurrent in that haunting thought and feeling, so that you have addressed it, you know how you're going to respond in the moment, and then you're free. You're free to move about your life without the requirement of that haunting thought there, always reminding you, because that's what haunting thoughts do, don't they? They're always reminding you about something. So if you take care of what its need is and what its intention is, from the point of view that it's doing something that's helpful for you, then when you address that, and then you can begin to deconstruct its need to remind you. Does this make sense?
I see some thumbs up, yes, and some nodding.
So allow this to sit in your field. Now, it's always important to know why. Why would it be beneficial? Why would it be helpful for you to release haunting thoughts, especially in the space of a group that is really cultivating their life using the universal sphere? The why is always good, especially in the human mind. If the motivation of understanding why is really a great propeller into action. So here's the reason why. If you notice this energy that keeps reminding you of something, whatever it might be, because there's so many different options of what it could be reminding you of. It's very hard to give it one summary statement. It's reminding you of something. It's usually based in a sense of fear, worry, trepidation, concern, but there's a positive motive behind it. So if you say, well, I'm really worried about this thing, you can put into action how to mitigate that. But what you can also do is, what what's the opposite of that experience? What's the opposite of that would bring this worry and concern into balance? Or another way to look at it is, what's the opposite of this that I can, with the universal sphere, bring in a bigger experience of? Because if you realize that your haunting thoughts are really coming from an insecure place, in whatever reason, in whatever way in your life, what you know is what you're really seeking is a sense of security around that thing, around that experience, around yourself. So you can begin to work with the universal sphere to expand into your sense of security, where you just say, I am secure in all situations, or I feel secure in my job situation. I feel secure in how I'm confident to make decisions moving forward. So the examples are being given around the energy of a lost job, but you can insert your own story and your own awareness. People have haunting thoughts about their health. Can anyone relate to that? Am I going to be healthy? Is there something wrong with me? Is there something I'm missing in my health? It's a very common theme to have haunting thoughts around your body. Well, those haunting thoughts around your body mean that you are anticipating a breakdown within your physical body in one way or another. And one could say, well, if you spend enough years on the planet, if your chronology is long enough, then you're going to end up having breakdowns in the body. That, you could say, is true. But there's a difference in that and the haunting thoughts. Well, maybe there's something wrong. Is my digestion okay? Is this a heart problem, or is just what's going on? How's my breathing? How are my joints? So if you recognize that you have haunting thoughts around your body and you're worried about something breaking down in your body, aside from taking reasonable steps to get things checked out or make adjustments for your vibrant health, you can also do universal spheres about your body being in tip-top shape, or that you're vibrating in a field of wellness, of strength, of youth, of however you want to bring in a new vibration. If you have a haunting thought about maybe never having enough money, you can look at what that is and you can break it down and you can break into the reasonable steps, but then you can also say that you can do universal spheres to bring in a vibration of easy abundance or being financially free, whatever it might be. So become aware of your haunting thoughts, work with them, and then bring in the universal sphere to honor what's really being asked for there in a really positive, expansive, vibrational field.
I would have thought that also in this, in any moment you have more conscious energy to be present in the moment and enjoy the experience.
Absolutely, because the bandwidth that's taken up by the haunting thoughts are free.
Thank you, Ishtara.
It does use energy, if you will, to do that. It's like you've got a subset of your energy, in a sense, distracted, even if it's subconsciously distracted. And you can find yourself feeling more alive and vibrant as you work with the universal sphere to bring in what that haunting thought is really ultimately asking you to bring in.
How can you be completely happy when you're in a place of worry?
Correct. And so many times in the human mind and the human experience, they think, well, I just have to resolve what it is I'm worried about. Well, sometimes there is no resolution to your worrying that you're not going to get a pink slip to be fired every Friday. That's hard to resolve because you're anticipating something that's not a reality, correct? So how do you work with that when it's something you're worried about, but you can't really control. So you can work in the vibratory realm to bring in that which would satisfy that energy.